I'd like to thank you for joining the Redwoods International Women's Day learning event. My name is Hannah. I am the volunteer coordinator at the Redwood for women and children fleeing abuse. Welcome, everybody. To begin, I would like to introduce to you Roshni Desai, who is a placement student here at the Redwood with the Redwood's Hub on Wheels and Resident Services, to lead us in our land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Hannah, for the introduction. We at the Redwood acknowledge that the land we are working from is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Chippewa, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. It's important to make this land acknowledgement as the historical violence and trauma inflicted on Indigenous people through settler colonialism is still present today in the form of systemic anti-Indigenous racism, most notably through the ongoing struggle to combat the crisis of missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and gender diverse people. As I do this reflection, I acknowledge that I'm a South Asian, Hindu, cisgender, able-bodied woman living as a settler on these lands. I'm thinking about how the impacts of colonization deeply impacted my home country of India as well. I acknowledge that I've been complicit in settler colonialism, although unintentionally, and have benefited from it. And as such, I'm committed to ongoing learning and solidarity, and I'm currently focused on growing as a social worker and research assistant who embeds the values of equity, cultural humility, and decolonization in my work.
Thank you very much, Roshni. I would now like to introduce the Redwoods Executive Director, Abby Ajibalade, to welcome you all.
Thank you, Hannah. I'm so grateful to you all for joining us today for the Redwood's inaugural International Women's Day Learning event. On behalf of myself and the many Redwood staff members who are joining us today, I wish to welcome those of you from sister organizations across the GTA and the province. We welcome the Redwood funders from the Ministry of Children, Ontario Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services, and welcome volunteers, donors, and other Redwood friends who are with us on this very special day. The theme for International Women's Day in Toronto is Fighting for Our Lives, Building Our Resistance. And I have to say, I'm feeling that theme with every fiber of my being. And I'm sure many of you are feeling this way as well. At the Redwood, we have been providing programs and services to support women and children to live and thrive without abuse, homelessness, and poverty for 32 years now. We have a 35-bed shelter with a full range of services for residents. We have unique training and employment programs for survivors, including women in trades, HVAC technician, and women in tech, IT help desk technician. Our Redwood Hub on Wheels brings anti-violence counseling and a full range of services to neighborhoods throughout the GTA and in our own customized RV. And yet it's not enough. Rates of gender-based violence and femicide have been on the rise. Between November 2023 and November 2024, 62 lives were lost to femicide in Ontario alone. The situation is intolerable. It is an outrage. And yet, we cannot and we will not despair. We will fight for our lives and we'll build our resistance. The proof is right here. Today, close to 100 of us have come together to learn how to use iDetermine.ca, the Redwood's 24/7 digital helpline, so that you can assist survivors who may turn to you for help in your community. Hannah will be leading us through some of iDetermine.ca most used tools. But before I turn you all over to her, I want to give you a little history. iDetermine was first launched in 2020 as a way for survivors experiencing gender-based violence or folks who are questioning the safety of their relationship to use interactive tools that can help them assess the dangers they may be facing, and most importantly, to make decisions about how they could live or cope with their situation more safely. The platform is named iDetermine.ca because it offers survivors the space they need to determine if and how they choose to be supported in private. The platform also includes 24/7 access to a crisis responder through text and live chat for those who don't have the privacy to make a phone call to a crisis line or who prefer to text or live chat versus speak on the phone. Over the last 5 years, the platform has seen over 7,000 connections to iDetermine Safe Relationship Quiz, to the Personalized Safety Planning Quiz, to our crisis responders, and to other learning and unlearning resources on the platform. Thank you all so much for taking part in today's IWD learning event and working with the Redwood to build a community of resistance to violence in the lives of our friends, our family members, our co-workers, and our neighbors. Thank you again.
Thank you, Abby. For those of you just joining, my name is Hannah Zimble, and I am the volunteer coordinator at the Redwood. As part of that work, I support the iDetermine.ca platform, and so it is my honor to introduce you to some of the platform's most used tools and resources. We will have a question and answer period at the end of today's session, and so I do encourage you to use the Q&A function in Zoom. It's at the bottom of your screen. You may put in questions at any time throughout the session, and we will answer them at the end. I'm now going to share my screen, and we're going to go through the homepage of iDetermine. All right. So as you can see, visitors are first greeted with a safety alert. More and more, part of the harm survivors experience is through the use of technology. And so we want to make sure that visitors to this platform know how to quickly escape and how to hide their browsing history. I'm going to exit out of this now. And I'd like to also note that this platform can be translated into many different languages by pressing this button at the top of the screen that currently says English with the Canadian flag. We're going to show a few examples. I'm going to try Hindi. By clicking that, you will see that the entire page does translate. Let's try one more. I'm going to try Serbian. And there we go. Now I'm going to go back to English for the rest of this learning event. And there we go. I'm now going to scroll down to the down the bottom of the home page and take you to our most used tool, which is the Answer the Safe Relationship Quiz. We're going to click on that. And we're brought into the quiz. Now, the quiz is a series of questions, about 12 questions, but if you were to select no to the Are you safe right now, the In case of emergency pop-up will show. So this is an option for you. You're advised to connect with a crisis responder through iDetermine or to call 911 in case of an emergency. But sometimes our crisis responders have been asked to call 911 on behalf of a chatter. Now, let's say we're going to select that we are safe right now. Now we begin the series of questions. I'm going to turn to the Redwoods' Christina Dejani, who is the Community Support and Outreach Manager, to present us with a scenario, and then we will go through the quiz together.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hannah. Here's the scenario, everyone. I'm a stylist at a hair salon. My client Rebecca talks to me about her boyfriend. She said that at first things were so great. It was like love at first sight. He showered her with all this attention and gifts. He was so supportive and was her biggest fan. But then things changed. He doesn't want her friends hanging out with them anymore. He gets jealous even when she wants to spend time with her family, and she even caught him looking through her phone and then lost it on her when she confronted him about it, like she was the one who had done something wrong. He seems to want more control over her every move. She told him that she wanted to break up, and he responded that she would regret it. He then pushed her. Now she's scared. When I validated her concerns, Rebecca minimized what was going on, so I suggested that she check out iDetermine.ca and do the safe relationship quiz and potentially speak with one of the iDetermine responders if she had any further concerns.
Thank you, Christina. So before I lead you through the safe relationship quiz, with each question, there are illustrated images, which might be distressing to some. So please do take care as we go through. I'm now going to answer this quiz pretending to be Rebecca. So do you hide or cover up the way your partner treats you? Sometimes. Do you try very hard not to upset your partner because you are afraid of what they might do? Sometimes. Do you ever feel like your partner keeps you prisoner? Sometimes. Does your partner ever make you feel like you have no power or control over your life? Sometimes. Does your partner have a look that terrifies you? No. Has your partner ever physically harmed you? For example, slapping, pushing, punching, kicking, or beating? Yes. Has your partner ever forced you to kiss, touch, or have sex when you did not want to? No. Is the physical or sexual harm getting worse or happening more often? No. Has your partner ever harmed you using a weapon, something other than their hands? For example, a shoe, belt, knife, or gun? No. Has your partner ever threatened you with a weapon? No. Do you believe your partner is capable of killing you? No. Does your partner ever place their hands or an object around your neck and squeeze? For example, choking or strangling? Yes. Is your partner violently and constantly jealous of you? Yes. We're now going to submit. And Rebecca has received the extremely severe level of danger. Based on Rebecca's answers, her level of danger is extremely high right now, and she is at risk for serious assault or homicide. In the case of an emergency, she's recommended to call 911. For next steps, we do strongly suggest that she creates a safety plan or an emergency escape plan, which is something that our iDetermine responders can support her with through the live chat or through the telephone crisis line. Remember, nobody deserves to be harmed. Now, there are two other risk levels that Rebecca could have received. There's green, which is a low level of risk, which would be advised to be cautious. And then there's yellow, which is a high level of risk, and she would be encouraged to get help now. So Christina is going to now show us how Rebecca could use iDetermine.ca to make a risk management plan right away by clicking this red button, Plan for Your Safety here.
Thank you, Hannah. So now, as we can see, we've been brought to the risk management plan. And on this page, it explains a little bit about what the risk management plan involves and entails and how it can be beneficial to a survivor. But before it jumps into the specifics of her scenario, it needs to ask a little personalized quiz just to get some more information to be able to provide protective actions to help her manage her risks. So again, it asks and starts with the first question, are you safe right now? To which you will respond yes.
Ooh.
Now, in the scenario, it didn't mention any children, so we will assume that she does not have any for the moment. So to this question, we would respond no. When asking if she's pregnant, the answer is also no. It asks, has the person causing harm ever physically hurt you? As we know from the scenario, there has been instances of that, so she would respond yes. It then asks if she lives with the person causing harm, to which she does, so she will answer yes. As they live together, we know that person causing harm knows where she lives as well, so again, she would also respond yes to this question. It then asks if she is in school. At this point, she is not, so she would respond no to this question. It also asks, do you have a job outside of your home? She does, so she would respond yes. She does not currently drive, so when it asks if she drives a car, she would answer no, but she does take public transit and will respond yes to that question. It then asks if she's prepping to leave or end the relationship, which is something she's contemplating, so she would say yes. It then asks if she's has any accessibility or mobility concerns. At this point, we don't know that, but we will say no because she does not. Do you have any protection, restraining, or peace bonds in place? She does not. So again, she would respond no. The following question asks if the survivor is a Canadian citizen. The main reason we ask this question is because if someone does not have status, it could increase risk factors for them. For the purposes of this scenario, though, we will say that Rebecca is, and so we'll respond yes. It then asks if she's completed the safety assessment, to which we all just saw that she went through and did our safe relationship quiz, so we'll answer yes. And then it asks a follow-up question of what was the result that she got from that, which we will select red, which was the extreme level of danger. From there, we click submit and it will generate the personalized risk management plan for her with various subheadings and information involved. Now, I won't take you through all of the information included in the result. There is quite a bit of options that she can go through and select, but I would encourage you to make a scenario and fill this out on your own time. You'll see there's quite a number of headings. So when you open each one, there's very specific suggestions on how to leave a relationship more safely, what to pack with you, who to tell, who not to tell. This plan also allows for quite a bit of customization. So for example, we can take a look at the what to pack in a safety bag, and it gives the option of a place that you can store that safety bag. And so Rebecca luckily has a great relationship with her stylist, and so she's able to store this safety bag at the salon, and so she's able to type that in and enter it on her behalf. Following this, she would submit the finalized risk management plan, and then once she has selected all the options applicable to her, it generates a finalized personal risk management plan for her, which she is able to email to herself, save as a PDF, or return to the link as well.
Thank you, Christina. So we have now learned how to use the Safe Relationship Quiz on iDetermine as well as the Risk Management Plan. I would now like to present the last of the three most used tools on iDetermine, which is the live chat function to reach a crisis responder. You will notice that the top banner of the web page stays the same as you scroll. And this allows you to quickly access the crisis chat line. So I'm going to click on the live chat on the right top hand corner. The live chat is completely anonymous for both the chatter and the responder. The system does not record any information, and it will delete everything once the chat has concluded. So I am going to just do a few exchanges to give you an idea of what that could look like. So as you can see, it opens up right into this page here. You see the quick escape option on the top right-hand corner. That would take you right to google.ca if you needed to go there at any point in time. You receive a message that says, "Thank you for reaching out. A counselor will be with you shortly. If this is an emergency, please call 911. We cannot do this on your behalf unless we know your name and current location. Please make sure you are using a device or computer that's safe and secure. If you think someone else could have installed spyware onto your device you're using, you may not want to use this service." So we can now see that a responder has joined the chat from iDetermine, and they have welcomed you. "Thank you for reaching out to iDetermine. How can I support you today?" So I'm going to type in as a potential chatter. So my husband and his family call me bad names in front of the kids. They tell me they hate me. I feel really depressed. How can I get him to stop? So we can see that the responder has entered the text, and they have read and responded, "Thank you for sharing a bit about your situation with me. Can you confirm, are you in a safe place to chat right now?" "Yes, I am at my friend's house." "I'm happy to hear you are currently safe. Would you like to share a bit more about your situation with me?" I feel silly for reaching out. They're just name calling. The kids do that to their friends. Maybe this isn't a big deal. The responder says, "Your feelings are valid. I'm glad you chose to talk about this today. Are you comfortable sharing some of the names they have called you?" They make negative comments on my appearance. They call me lazy and entitled. Yesterday, he said, "I wish you didn't exist," in front of our kids. From the responder, "I'm sorry you had to listen to that. No one should be made to feel that way. It sounds like you are experiencing emotional abuse. You might not be able to get him to stop, but we can talk about some of your options if you're ready." Yes, I'm ready. So I'm going to end the chat there as you get an idea of how this can work. So chatters can receive the same kind of support through live chat that they would through the telephone crisis line. So the responder can take the chatter through the quizzes on iDetermine, and they can help them learn more about their situation. But there are a lot of other resources available on iDetermine.ca. So I'm going to go back to the home page and we can take a look at that. I'm going to click Quick Escape at the top. So it takes me back to google.ca. And I'm going to type in iDetermine again. There's that safety alert. And now I'm going to scroll down a little bit and take a look at what our other resources are. So there's the live chat, the text, and the call. And I'm going to learn more and select what resources are available to me in the middle here. When I click that, it takes me to Find Support in Your Area, which is also under the Get Help Now drop-down menu. And it takes us to the mulberry.com website, which is this amazing resource that was created by the Ontario Association of Interval and Transitional Houses, otherwise known as OATH. And I would like to thank them for sharing this resource with iDetermine.ca. So we're going to take a look at how this works. So the great thing about this resource is that you can really filter through many different organizations and find what you need by clicking through all of these options here at the top. Now, the resources that are listed here are all specific to supporting survivors of gender-based violence. So let's take a look. I'm going to select that I am looking for the service type of let's take a look. I'm going to do the VAW shelter, which stands for Violence Against Women Shelter. I'm going to select that. I'm going to say that the language I need is Spanish. And the postal code I'm going to use is this one, N1H2N1, which is Guelph, Ontario. And that's all you need to do. We're now going to scroll down, and we are provided with this option, the Inasmuch House Mission Services of Hamilton. If I were to click on the button that says Learn More, it takes me to a little bit more about this organization. So it will provide me with their phone number, their crisis line number. They also have a texting number. They have a website. But what I really want to know is, do they provide services in Spanish? And it does say so. Language is available. Spanish is listed there, which is great. Now I'm going to return to results. And this time I'm going to unselect Spanish, and we'll see what else comes up. So we're still in Guelph. We are still looking for a violence against women shelter. And you can see there are all different types of resources that are offered. Some are close to, some are in Guelph itself, and you have many options listed here that you can learn more about. There is also a map view as well, if that is easier to navigate. So now I'm going to go back to the iDetermine homepage by clicking the logo in the top left-hand corner. And we're just going to quickly take a look at some of the other resources available to you. I'm not going to go through each page, but these are what's available. So we have under What is Abuse? Warning and Danger Signs of Abuse, Power and Control in Relationships, and the Social Risks Wheel. Under Safety, we're brought again to the Safe Relationship Quiz, the Risk Management Plan, but also Tech and Media Safety, Youth Survivors, 2S LGBTQIA+ survivors, and survivors in rural areas. And lastly, under Get Help Now, if we were to click on Find Support in Your Area, it takes us back to that page that we just explored. But if you know specifically you would like to find a shelter, you can also select Find a Shelter, and it will show you a resource to help you with that. So I'd like to thank you all for your attention as we introduced you to iDetermine.ca. I'm now going to bring Christina back to answer any of the questions you may have. And I believe that Abby is also standing by to answer any questions. I'd like to remind you to submit your questions through the Q&A button in the Zoom window at the bottom of your page. And I'm passing it off to you, Christina.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm seeing quite a bit of questions in the Q&A. So I'll start with the first one. It asks, what research/materials did you use to develop your quiz and risk levels? That's a really great question. So actually the Safe Relationship Quiz and the Personalized Risk Management Plan are based on part of we have at the Redwood about a little over a decade ago, we developed our safety assessment and risk management framework, which we have available for download on our website, the Redwood website, not on iDetermine.ca. But the safety assessment and risk management framework was developed based on evidence-based research. So some of the examples of that include like the findings from the Ontario Death Review Committee, and then was compiled to assess what are, risk factors for like lethality, pieces like that. And then we formed other tools from that, which are in our handbooks and toolkits, mainly meant for professionals. And then we wanted to bring those tools and information to the public so that way people could access them from home, if they're curious on their phone, maybe they're having questions about their relationship, they're unsure if it's safe for them. They could go through and have it publicly accessible through pieces like the Safe Relationship Quiz and the Personalized Risk Management Plan. So I hope that answers that question. I also saw there's a second question that asks, how long do you approximately think this entire process completed fully from start to finish would take? Caitlin, I'm assuming you mean the Safe Relationship Quiz and the Personalized Risk Management Plan. I would say those are going to vary. It's going to depend. It might take someone a little bit longer to answer, but probably within 5 to 10 minutes, it could be completed if someone was really in a rush trying to do that. But I'm also thinking, someone may have to really think on the question. Someone may need time emotionally to go through that process. And so in those instances, it may take them a little bit longer. And then in terms of the chats, if you're also thinking of that, chats can vary in length. We've had chats as short as 5 minutes. We've also had chats that have gone over an hour. So it really just kind of depends and varies from there. I'm also seeing another question that says, can you outline the limitations of what the chat function can be used for? For example, what context might referrals be made and to whom? Would individuals be discouraged from texting, chatting multiple times for ongoing short-term support? So in terms of referrals, I'm not sure if you mean in the context of um, like referrals to other organizations. So it's more so sharing resources. We don't necessarily make direct referrals through iDetermine, just because we can't see the person. We have very minimal information to go off of. But we always do try to gear services, resources that we share to where the person is living. So for example, we might try to ask someone their general location. They don't have to give us their address or anything like that, but we might ask them, what city, what town, what region are they in? And then from there, we can share, so if they were looking for food banks, for example, we could share information more tailored to where they are living. And we've also had people reach out to us from across Canada and even some folks from the US. So we were able to really take the time and kind of find resources more geared towards where that person was living. And would individuals be discouraged from texting, chatting multiple times? No, we have had people that have, reached out to us more than once. We definitely don't discourage that. I want to be clear though, it's not a counseling support. It's really meant to be more of, crisis response, chat support. But that's not to say that we don't have people who've reached out to us more than once, and that we support in a more continuous basis. But again, the challenge with that is it's not guaranteed that they'll get the same person every time, and we can't assure that. And it's not that kind of a function where they have like an appointment that's booked. It's more they pop onto the chat, and then staff or volunteers that we have online are able to answer it and kind of support the person from there. But everyone that is working on iDetermine, whether they be staff or a volunteer, is trained to the same capacity around iDetermine and responding and supporting chatters as well. The next question asks, are all of your responders registered counselors, social workers, or something similar? If not, do you disclose this to service users? So you might notice we don't actually use the language on the website or in the chat function counselor. We do use responder. So some of our staff and volunteers are registered counselors and social workers, but that's not necessarily the capacity that we're supporting folks with through iDetermine. Is really meant to be more of like that emotional support, resource finding, like Hannah was saying, can assist people with doing some of the safe relationship quizzes, talking through some of those pieces, kind of exploring a little bit further what that looks like for them. So no, to answer that question, not everyone is, but like I said, everyone is trained in the same trauma-informed anti-oppression, anti-racism lens, and bringing that to the work that we do in supporting people that reach out to our chat line. Is the chat available in other languages? Paula, that's a really great question. So we didn't have a chance to show this feature in the chat that Hannah simulated, but so yes, there is a way that if someone reaches out to us and they're typing in another language, we can translate those messages in the actual, like on our end, we can translate those messages and it'll show us what language it is. They don't have to tell us what language they're speaking. The translation service can detect that based on what they've typed. And then we can respond and then it will translate automatically as well. So I hope that answers that question. Oh, there's a lot of questions. Okay. The next one is, would the chat be able to support someone who is looking to talk to a friend, colleague, etc., about their safety? So, for example, supporting someone who is in turn looking to support another. Yeah, that's a really great question. So actually, we do often have people that will reach out to us because, they're concerned about a neighbor, a friend, a family member, and they're kind of looking for strategies of how to have that conversation with the person, or, maybe they themselves have tried to have that conversation of and expressing their concern for their loved one, but they're kind of unsure how to go about it. They have concerns, or they've tried and they've maybe found that it's been unsuccessful. So they might be reaching out to supports that they can share with the person. So to that, we definitely do support people with that. We try to take it from an approach of, how has it been impacting them? What kinds of conversations have they been having with this person? And then sharing the resources with them that they can kind of pass along as well. Someone shared, thanks for sharing about iDetermine. Just wondering, is there any other tools for service providers? That's a really great question, and thanks for asking it. So yes, we actually do have other tools. I mentioned a few responses ago about the Redwood Safety Assessment and Risk Management framework. And so within that, we have a variety of tools that professionals can use in collaboration with a person that they're supporting. A really exciting tool that we've recently developed in addition to the SARM framework is our accelerated safety assessment and risk management framework. And so with that, there's some really great components in there. There's a safety screen snapshot, the actual accelerated safety assessment and risk management, which is really trying to build the picture of the experience that the person is having and what is it that they've been kind of experiencing around abuse. And then from there, we kind of have the safety action plan. And there we're really able to kind of help give the person, referrals and creating an action plan for them and making it a really collaborative process. And so, like I said, that's a relatively new tool that we've come up with. And if anyone is interested in getting more training around that, please feel free to put your email in the chat box and we can reach out to you around maybe setting up a training with your team or your organization. And then someone asked, in terms of the number of calls and texts, what are trends in terms of numbers? Are the number of calls or texts what you expected? Are they more or less than what you expected? Wow, so many great questions. So I would say it really varies. So as Abby had mentioned in her first intro part, iDetermine really got its start during the pandemic. And so that was when we noticed a much higher influx of responses, chatters, because people were reaching out. They were, potentially stuck with it at home with the person causing them harm, weren't able to get on to a phone call. And so our calls and texts numbers vary in range. We have some weeks that are busier than others, some days that are busier than others. But on average, I believe it's about over 300 to 400 chats a year. But again, that really varies from time to time. And then, yeah, I hope that answers that question. Um, and then would someone be directed, um, what would someone be directed to if the first set of questions gave them a green outcome? Oh, so that's actually a really good question. So on the iDetermine.ca, if you go to where the safe relationship quiz is and hover over that, it will pop up the level of risk option. And if you select that, it will bring up what are the three potential outcomes of that. So the green, yellow, and red. So green, it would usually connect or encourage folks, even though it's saying that it's a lower level of risk, still being cautious and, really trying to look at, things may be lower risk now, but that can change. And so it will still encourage them to, oh, thanks, Hannah, for pulling that up. So as we can see, it says, there's a low level of risk right now, but that can change quickly, encouraging them to learn about different warning and danger signs in a relationship, also kind of looking at, escalation. So if things are starting to happen more frequently or more intense, for example. And then it's important to reflect on your relationships if they feel like something's off, kind of encouraging them to trust their intuition. And then they can kind of connect with all of those resource pages. It can also be a great time to kind of connect and chat with one of our responders. So I know even in the past, I myself have had connections with chatters that have reached out because of results they got from the safe relationship quiz and really wanted to talk through that. And, they might have been a little alarmed or had questions about the results they got and wanted to talk that through. So people are always encouraged to reach out to us that way as well. And then we can kind of help talk them through what they're going through, what their experiences is, and then kind of helping validate that as well. And then it says, what training do respondents have in terms of various forms of emotional, psychological, in short, non-physical forms of abuse? As we know, the nuances are different, yet the risk for lethality is still high. Yeah, really great question. So when we do training with all of our volunteers and staff for iDetermine, the training is quite comprehensive and talks about, the cycles of abuse, different forms of abuse to keep out for. So, it could be technological, financial, emotional, looking at psychological and coercion, emotional forms of abuse as well. So they are trained in that and what to look out for and how to support someone through those pieces as well. And also all of our staff and volunteers know, even if physical violence and abuse isn't involved, that doesn't mean that the abuse is not impactful to that person and is not dangerous for that person. And we would support them just as much as we would anybody else. Think that's all of them, but maybe I've missed some, Hannah.
There's one in the chat.
Oh, okay. I'm seeing a few more pop up as well in the Q&A. Um, the next one says, if a caller is ready to exit the relationship and go to a shelter, will the responder support with calling shelters or will they be redirected to Assault a Woman's Helpline? Oh, great question, Patty. So when we're on iDetermine, we only have the text and web chat functions. People are welcome to also call our crisis line, like our phone crisis line as well. If they're ready to leave, we can talk them through the risk management plan piece, talk them through what the relationship is. If they need to get out really quickly, we've in the past helped people find ways and safety plan with them to get out of that situation very quickly. We often can't call shelters on people's behalf. We've tried that in the past, and we've often been told that they need to have that the chatter would need to call the shelter directly, just because if they're doing intake and offering space, they need to know who they're talking to, do the intake and ask the questions directly. But yeah, so usually it's either we'll redirect them to Assault a Woman's Helpline, potentially connect them with other shelters. I know in the past we've even called around to a couple shelters just to see if places had space, and then would just encourage the person to call directly. Although that isn't always an option, it really just kind of depends on the situation and the circumstances the person is facing. Because we're mindful, not everyone has the opportunity to call, but we could even help kind of safety plan with them around, when would be a safer time for them to call, what where could they go to make that call. Like for example, we've had people that have reached out to our chat line. They're out on their jog or they're grocery shopping, and that's like the time that they have to reach out. And so we could kind of strategize with them around how could they make that call, how could they erase calls to places like Assault Women's Helpline or shelters once they've made that call, so that way if they do have to return back to for whatever reason, then they don't have that call on their call log display. Um, do you provide safety planning for clients who use this chat? If yes, do you do this in situations which involves children and complex legal matters as well? Yeah, so we can do the risk management planning piece with folks through the chat. So it is publicly available on the website. They are welcome to do it on their own, but we can also do it in collaboration with them. Now, we aren't obviously able to provide legal advice, but we can help connect them and share resources around pieces that can support their legal matter. So whether it's they need to connect with a legal clinic, Legal Aid Ontario, other services as well, we can kind of help support them in that regard. And yes, we do support in situations where children are involved as well.
Christina, I have some questions from the chat.
Okay.
Are there PDF versions of these tools? Some of our clients don't have consistent access to the internet or prefer using analog methods.
Yeah. So the iDetermine tools are obviously on the website, but some of them, like for example, the risk management plan, you could save the like blank version of that. So I'm not sure if it was clear, but when you get to the final page of the risk management plan, if you click on all of those options, you can select and deselect the options that are most applicable to you. You could save that, for example, and print copies of that out. Like if you wanted to keep that in your office, or if someone wanted to use that for their own personal use. Like I mentioned, we do also have some tools through our Her Toolkit and the Safety Assessment Risk Management package on the Redwood.ca under our Learning and Resources tab. You could put in a request for those, but they do come in like a larger package, not necessarily individual tools. But we do also have, like I mentioned, that accelerated SARM piece that is a more individualized tool, more so designed though to be completed in collaboration with a professional and the person. One of the beauties about iDetermine is people can complete these safe relationship quizzes and risk management plans at their own leisure from the comfort of their home, their phone, or even like, if they had to check at work or something like that, that could also be an option.
Thank you. Another question from the chat. Were there questions about emotional abuse in the beginning of the first set of questions, which was the safe relationship quiz?
Yeah, so the first few questions of the quiz are asking things, like around how does your partner make you feel? Some of those things could be getting at emotional abuse. Um, really trying to look at that piece of things as well is also something they could talk through with one of our responders. And really where they could get more in depth around, they're not limited to the questions being asked. They could have a conversation with one of our responders talking through the abuse that they're experiencing, whether that be emotional, financial, physical, sexual in nature, and then could kind of get additional support from there as well.
I think that's all. I did have more of like a comment from someone named Danielle, who says they would absolutely be interested in hearing more about additional resources, frameworks, etc. the Redwood has to offer. Maybe the opportunity for a part 2 webinar as well.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Danielle. And definitely something we're considering and in the works. So thank you for that. And I don't know if you put your email in the chat, Danielle, but if you did, we'll definitely have the SARM team reach out to you to share more resources and training opportunities as well.
For anyone else who would like that, if you would not like your email to be shared publicly, feel free to click where it says everyone in the webinar chat, and you can change it to send to the hosts and the panelists only. And that's another way that we can reach out to you as well. Oh, I think there's one more question in the Q&A.
Oh, actually, it's just a comment and very nice. Thank you so much. It just says, thank you for sharing all of your knowledge. This was very informative, Christina. I don't know who you are, anonymous attendee, but thank you very much.
Do we have any other final questions or comments before we wrap up? We have one here in the chat. Do you have any quick YouTube video to demo the platform?
We don't currently, but that's a really great idea. So thank you, Rafi.
All right. Well, if there are any other questions, feel free to write them into the web chat or to put them in the Q&A, and we will do our best to, we're going to stay on until 2 o'clock, so you're welcome to still ask and we'll still answer. But I would like to thank everybody so very much for participating in the Redwoods International Women's Day Learning event. We are very grateful for your interest in learning how to use iDetermine.ca. You are helping to make the community safer and healthier for all of us. For those of you in Toronto or nearby, the Redwood is participating in the International Women's Day March this Saturday at 1 p.m. And we start at the Oisey Building on Bloor Street West near St. George Subway Station, and we'll end up at the TMU campus. So if you'd like more details, pardon me, please feel free to leave a message and we will contact you with those details. And now a short survey will pop up at the end of this learning event, and we would appreciate if you could take a few minutes to respond. Pardon me. And on that note, happy International Women's Day, everyone. Fight for our lives and build resistance.